Waste is useful and there are people who will pay to have them. Hello, welcome to Ecosphere. I am Fidelia Aguncha. Africa generates nearly 70 million tons of waste every year. Now, if you think that's massive, then wait till about 2030 when the figure is expected to double. But the good news is, by adopting the 3 R's in waste management, we will not just beat down the figure, but we'll go a step further to make these wastes economically useful and also improve our ecosystem. Still wondering what the 3 R's are? Take a ride with me as we explore how we can reuse, reduce and recycle our waste. Believed to be the waste capital of Africa, Nigeria generates over 43.2 million tons of waste annually, with every individual producing about 0.85 kilogram of waste per day. Waste products are generally considered worthless. They can be divided into two major categories: biodegradable and non-biodegradable. While biodegradable waste, which comes from plant or animal sources, can be degraded by other living organisms, non-biodegradable waste cannot be broken down by other organisms. Now that's a major threat. Plastic bags, bottles, tin cans, and even electronic devices are arguably some of the most used daily items worldwide. However useful, they also pose a great danger to our continued existence when improperly disposed.
Because of the convenience that it brings, it's easy to use, it's quite durable. So our lives are roped around plastics and all that. But unfortunately, when it gets to the end of use for us, it's not something that biodegrades. It doesn't break down in the soil. So it remains in the soil for hundreds of years. And even, unfortunately, even when burnt, they produce, toxic, fumes into the atmosphere. So they are good to use, but when not properly managed, it becomes nuisance to the environment. It becomes nuisance even to our food chain, to our water system. It becomes nuisance even to the sea animals.
In Nigeria, managing waste disposal has become a major concern, despite several attempts by successive governments and even private organizations to check this. The Environmental Performance Index assessment says many Nigerians are exposed to life-threatening environment due to poor sanitation. It is not uncommon to see heaps of festering waste dumps in every nook and cranny of the country, and these waste products pose a great threat to our ecosystem. Waste treatment and disposal produces significant greenhouse gas emissions, notably methane, which are contributing significantly to global warming. Looking to change the narrative is this group of Nigerians who have taken it upon themselves to rid the environment of improperly disposed waste. Every last Saturday of the month, they gather at selected locations within their community to pick up litters and sensitize residents on the impact of improper waste disposal. Here at the Kids Beach Garden in Lekki, Lagos State, the volunteers are greeted by this sight of mainly non-biodegradable litters washed ashore by the ocean. Organizers of this movement say their goal is an eco-friendly environment for kids through the promotion of waste management and recycling culture.
We started the Kids Beach Garden in 2015 because we saw that there was a need for the children in Lagos State to have a safe place to play on the shorelines. And we also realized that we have so much plastic waste on the shorelines of Lagos State. We have tree planting activities, we have recycling activities, we have beach cleanup activities like the one happening now, and we make sure that people have fun when they come to do something beneficial for the environment. That's from the shoreline, so as many things as people can pick up on the shoreline of the Kids Beach Garden. They clean that up. When it's taken, it is now sorted. It's sorted we have the biodegradables and we have the non-biodegradable.
We actually run our activities via a communal engagement scheme. It's a win-win situation for us and the society. We just encourage people to come from far and wide. They come, they join us. We actually have, we promote our campaign via social media platforms. Every month of this year, we've had cleanups every last Saturday of the month, and on every UN recognized day, we've also organized cleanups. We also encourage corporate bodies, individuals to come here whenever they want to engage in cleanup, voluntary cleanup exercises whenever they so please. We believe this is one of the ways to promote a healthy environment, to also ensure that we promote every sustainability initiative that would help to curb the menace of global warming and climate change at large. You can see we have them being deposited in bags there. We count before we now then recycle a good number of them. The biodegradables are being recycled, and then the other waste we actually have bins, and we have the Lagos Waste Management who actually come get this waste back. But basically a good part of our waste is being recycled. Apart from that also, we engage in beach education. Every plastic you find that ends up in the ocean takes for around 50 years before they get decomposed. So you could imagine when the plastic is in the ocean, it actually outlives human beings as well. And so we try our best to ensure that we encourage children like this who are here today for the cleanup. We tell them about this initiative. So we encourage them, when you have plastics in your home, bring them here. We will recycle them, and we'll give you penny, even if it's stipends. You get stipends for actually recycling your plastics.
Among the volunteers is this medical doctor who says activities like this should be encouraged to sustain our ecosystem.
I've always been very concerned about the state of the beach. I've lived here for 14 years, and in 14 years I've seen it go from bad to worse. So it's nice to see somebody had an initiative, and I'm happy to key in. For sustainability of the planet, we all need to do this. If we don't, eventually this will get us. The ecosystem is being destroyed by plastic, particularly plastic, but waste. I'm also a keen follower of the ocean rescue on Sky News. I listen to that every day, and I think, yes, we should do something about plastics in the oceans. Please, let's protect our environment. It is an ecosystem. If we eventually destroy the environment, we will destroy ourselves. So if only for enlightened self-interest, it's in our own interest to keep our environment clean. Let us please protect the environment in every way we can. Let us plant trees, let us dispose of our waste properly and safely, and let us not abuse the environment.
At the end of the day, the wastes are sorted, with the non-biodegradable ones packaged into different bags, ready for recycling. With Nigeria's economy struggling to recoup from its last recession, efforts are being made by the government to limit importation and generate revenue through every means possible. Barely scratched is the multi-billion-dollar collection and recycling industry, which is creating jobs, building wealth, and saving Africa's natural environments. Recycling is the process of converting waste materials into new products, thereby preventing damage of potentially useful materials, cutting consumption of raw materials, reducing energy usage and environmental pollution. Most of the waste produced in Africa can be recycled and reused to create new products. This has given an increasing number of Nigerians the opportunity to create value from their waste. Ventures like Recycle Point in Lagos reward consumers for gathering and remitting non-biodegradable waste like pure water sachet, PET plastic bottles, used beverage cans, glass bottles, old newspapers, and brown corrugated cartons, among others. Having lived in a country with proper waste management system, Mazi decided to return to Nigeria and promote the recycling culture. What began from his household to his street now has over 8,000 subscribers across the state.
Recycle Points is a waste recycling and social benefit initiative that aims at motivating citizens to create value from their everyday waste. I have been in the oil and gas sector for more than 15 years, and my wife was in banking, and while we were outside the country in the UK, we were penalized for disposing our waste wrongly. So we received a council fine in London, and that actually spurred us to ask us a very important question. This is something that we have been doing, disposing waste without trying to sort them. So on getting back to Nigeria, we continued this sorting and recycling activity, And then on our own, we try to start to see if there are possible ways where we could have that economic connect. And together we were able to come up with this recycle points idea. And it grew in from our streets, and it went in. We started having to have people that will bring in their waste to us. And we started clearly looking out for opportunities that we could explore. So the idea was for us to be able to build up a model that would incentivize recycling and allow people to get direct benefits from doing that activity. And that has sprung now. We have over 8,000 subscribers in our platform, and a lot of other things have come out of it. We have a corporate recycling program, and at the moment we have about 22 companies that are actively instilling the recycling culture in their organizations, and a couple of them are financial institutions like the Access Bank, the Union Bank, the FCMB Bank, and they are all coming together, to take up this culture.
Aside the prevalent poor waste disposal culture in communities across Nigeria, what more could be the cause for the waste management crisis in the country?
It's actually not an activity that provides a lot of revenue, because it's most times difficult to get people to pay their waste bills, and people see the easiest and shortest option is to litter or fly tip their items, or even dump them in oceans and dump sites without having to. So it's a huge challenge for government to be able to put in a lot of resources, because nothing most times is coming out from managing waste. And not just that, the huge idea of trying to make sure that the environment is clean informs that you need to be able to have people that are sweeping streets, you need to be able to have garbage trucks that are moving around picking items, and a whole lot of overheads come with this, managing that kind of activity. So you find out that most state governments see this as a huge challenge. Most of them don't have all the required expertise within their tenure to be able to handle this, and that has actually led to us having poor waste management structures in most locations. But it's something that's something that has a solution if we actually deploy the right strategies, and these strategies need not just be local but also be nationalized, so that we can have a very fair economic activity running around it, where people can be able to see that waste as an opportunity for them to be able to make a living.
The dangers of improper waste disposal goes beyond littering the environment. It is in fact a major cause of global warming.
Dangers of poor waste management is one that is actually overwhelming. We are in the rainy season at the moment, and you will observe that flooding is an issue. And what actually necessitates flooding most times is that the items that we call waste that we have been able to litter or dispose wrongly find their ways to our drainage channels, and they clog those drainage channels, and most times this even leads to breeding grounds for diseases like malaria and all. So the idea is that if we can be able to put ourselves to adhere to best practices in waste management, it will be a lot more better for our environment. And then most of these items that we dispose, if we get them out in the general waste bin and don't recover them, they end up in our dump sites. And what actually happens in most of the dump sites, or landfills as we may call them, is incineration. So when we incinerate those items, they produce a lot of toxic gases that when we inhale them, it becomes very, very hazardous for our health. So these are very major challenges, and the highest of it, which is what we are clamoring against now, is the effects it has on climate change. And that's all that we are trying to say, that if we want to actually have a more healthy and cleaner environment, we should be able to adhere to good practices in waste management.
The topic of recycling is not new to Nigerians. However, most people are ignorant of why they should sort their waste, let alone recycle it. Inadequate knowledge of what can be recycled and what cannot be recycled has been identified as a setback to the vision of achieving a recycling community in Nigeria.
The idea about recycling is to find out materials that could get a new life after they have been disposed. And then in this, we have a majority of the plastics. We have the paper, the cartons, we have the glass bottles we are using. We have the scrap metals, the used beverage cans that are most times made of aluminum, and a whole lot of other items. Very prevalent now is what we call the pure water sachets that we are using. So those items are made from high density or low density polyethylene, which is a form of plastic, and they can all be recovered and we can able to put them into processes that can help us get new products from them. Clearly, there are items that are still very challenging to recycle because of the cost. At the moment, we have a couple of flexible packaging items that are more of like a combination of various items. So separating those items will be a challenge. People don't know this most times. So that's where there is a global clamor for us to be able to have people to clearly identify what item it is when they are procuring them or when they are getting them, because it's a challenge for those items to be recycled because it was more expensive. So some flexible packaging that have a combination of both paper, aluminum, and even plastics all put together. Those are items that is clearly, when we see them in the recycling stream, it's difficult for us to get them through because separating them becomes a huge challenge.
How then can we grow a recycling community? Recycle Point has come up with a genius idea to encourage Nigerians.
The idea about our initiative is to be able to, create that convenience and access for post-consumers to, bring out or sort their items at the point of disposal and then get them across to us. And in our platform, they are able to earn points for which they can accrue over time to redeem for valuable household items and even cash. So you find people getting as much as 100,000 naira to 50,000 naira to washing machines, to generating sets, to refrigerators, just based on all the way down to even beverages and noodles, just because they've been collecting their recyclable items. So that's our idea of converting their waste to something like what we'll call waste to wealth.
With more Nigerians tapping into this gold mine called recycling, a healthier economy is brewing with unemployment on the decline.
In Nigeria, that we have close to about 2.5 million tons of 2.5 million tons of plastics. Just simple extrapolation. It tells you that it's an economy that can absorb close to about 100 million euro. Okay? That can process that tons of waste. 100 million euros. It's a lot of money within the system. That it's something that can be turned around. The number of workers in Lagos, the example I have in Lagos, we had let me just put a figure around it. The number of workers within that sector, and if you look at the business value chain itself, from the collectors to those who will wash, to those who will process, and those who will extrude and the market the waste itself. If you look at the 300 tons for Lagos, we can put a figure of almost about 1,000 people managing the 300 tons of waste annually. So if you extrapolate that nationally, just multiply by about some figures, we'll be having close to about 20,000 people working on plastic alone in the nation. It's a lot.
The most common recyclable material is plastic, which can be melted to make tons of other products. This has helped check the depletion of raw materials and preservation of the rainforests.
We might interest you to know that a whole lot of items come out from the drinking plastic bottles that you use. For instance, since 2010, Nike, the apparel makers, sports apparel makers, make a jersey from 7 plastic bottles. And you have Adidas also making shoes, from plastic bottles, especially the PET, because it's actually from there they get what we call polyester fiber. So then you also have a lot of our used beverage cans end up in plants here that melt them, extrude them to produce window profiles, produce your pots, your pans, and even roofing sheets. And then even for the polyester fiber, you see people making a lot of things like mattresses, foams, and even stripes from it. So there's a whole lot of things. Your cartons end up in paper mills here that would use them to produce craft papers, which can again be used to make papers or shopping bags. And the whole list goes on. Glass bottles end up becoming glass bottles because it's broken down back to the item.
Reuse is the action or practice of using something again, whether for its original purpose or to serve a different function. Research has shown that reusing of waste helps save time, money, energy, and resources. This has given rise to the activities of eco-artists who transform waste like glass, cans, plastics, CDs, PET bottles, and even tires into amazing pieces of contemporary art and even furnitures.
The waste that we think is waste is not waste. It's a huge investment waiting to be harvested. You know, we are not against generating waste. We are against the improper disposition of waste and the lack of knowledge to recycle or upcycle this waste into something valuable that can earn money both in rural areas and in urban centers. At the first when we started, our response wasn't very encouraging because people were like, what are you doing with waste? You know, they label us like waste people. But after a while, and with the encouragement we have from at least people that are advanced in thinking and also from the international community, people are beginning to, you know, see that waste is actually a value that needs to be tapped into.
In Lagos alone, over 10,000 metric tons of waste is produced on a daily basis. To promote a more sustainable environment, experts believe there is need to cut down on the amount of waste produced. Waste minimization is a set of processes and practices intended to reduce the production of waste. It involves redesigning products as well as changing societal patterns of consumption and production.
The goal is actually for government to encourage waste minimization, reduce the waste you generate in the first place. I believe there's this carrot approach, that's creating awareness, giving people incentives. And also, there's also the stick approach. And that is enforcing, making sure that people actually pay for whatever nuisance they do with their waste. We should be responsible with our waste. But unfortunately, even our waste structure is such that it is fragmented. It's not, sometimes it's not even functional. There are other shopping materials, like made from clothes, some are from jute materials. They are reusable. They can even be washed. They're just like clothes. And that's what we're encouraging.
Billions of dollars are made annually in US and Europe through proper waste management and recycling. Experts say Nigeria is barely scratching the surface with the opportunities enmeshed in waste management.
Recycling is a huge, we would say, billion-dollar industry at the moment, because the whole materials that we are using actually come from extractive sources. So, for instance, the plastic, most plastics are actually a byproduct of oil, and extracting oil is a huge, activity on its own. So, but then when you have been able to extract and gotten virgin resins for plastics, reusing those plastics is most times we say cost effective, and it's one that everybody would want to see and explore, to get the huge benefits that come from it. Bauxite, for instance, that is where we get our aluminum. Recycling the cans that we are in is a whole lot, let's say 1/3 energy is required in getting it back into the form that it can be used. So, and is a huge industry. Currently at the moment we see, for instance, plastics generated annually in Nigeria ranges from about 80,000 to 100,000 tons per annum, and we are barely scratching the surface with regards to the companies at the moment, former companies that are exploring the recovery of these items. So it's quite huge. We believe that it will affect our GDP if individuals in our country actually imbibe that culture of recycling. They will benefit hugely from it. Each individual statistics say they generate about 0.5 kilogram of waste per day. So if you can be able to explore recovering that waste, we believe it will have a huge economic impact in our society.
Over 30 countries across the world, including 11 African countries, have placed a ban on single-use plastic bags. Kenya recently passed a law that makes producing, selling, or even using plastic bags punishable by up to 4 years in prison or fines of about $38,000. With this move, the Nigerian government has been under intense pressure from experts to ban the use of plastic bags in favor of paper bags that are more environmentally friendly. This waste management expert is, however, of a different opinion.
NAFDAC informed us some time ago that the pure water packaging company is like a 5 billion naira a day industry in the country. And since the advent of the pure water, we've had reduced issues with regards to waterborne diseases and all. So a lot of people are depending on this, on that industry, not just for us drinking water, good water, but also for their daily livelihood. So going in for a ban in that kind of aspect where we clearly don't have an alternative, to it is one that will really put us in a very precarious situation.
Despite being the waste capital of Africa, experts say complete waste management is possible in Nigeria, but only with the government playing an active role.
To help curbing effects of climate change, you need to do a lot in terms of infrastructure. If you look, for instance, at the sector of waste management, it's one thing convincing the citizens to collect waste, but it has to be then transported somewhere. And yes, the private sector can do a lot, but somehow the government has to provide infrastructure as well.
I think there are a lot of opportunities in the waste sector in Lagos State. We have not scratched the surface at all. When you talk about the waste that you can collect and turn into value, Lagos State is not yet doing that. And I think that's a really exciting thing, because once we're able to harness that, we're going to create value for states. It's going to add to the state's GDP. It's also going to create jobs, much needed jobs in the state. And most importantly, I think it's also going to make the state more competitive, with its counterparts, because we are going to become like a mini China, because China is known for being a recycling country. They import waste from all over the world and they turn it into end products. Imagine Lagos, we have Chinese people here in Lagos that are doing that. Imagine Lagos growing and having more of that, having more, industries that turn waste into products, and Lagos now can even supply neighboring states, neighboring countries with the end products. So I think, Lagos is a port city. So it's a strategic thing that I think we need to really grab. And I'm really glad that the government has keyed into that, with the CLI initiative has taken off. A lot of Lagosians, and it makes me very proud to see that Lagosians are now talking about waste. You see people going into the waste sector, going into the sustainability sector. And I just think about how it's going to be in the next 10 years.
In celebration of the 2018 World Environmental Day, Nigeria's Vice President Yemi Osinbajo said to address the effect of non-biodegradable waste, the Ministry of Environment, in collaboration with stakeholders, is developing a national plastic waste recycling program to create waste recycling plants across the country. Now, this could mean more effective waste management on a larger scale, so big that it could just become one major revenue generator for the country. Well, that's the end of the ride for today. Hope you've learned something new. Remember, a healthy environment begins with you and I. Until we meet again on Ecosphere, remain a part of nature.